Hi, everyone. My name is Zeva Manvi. I'm the Associate Director of Admissions for Yale Young Global Scholars, YYGS. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us for this webinar today, or if you're viewing the recording, for taking the time to view that. We really appreciate you learning more about Yale Young Global Scholars. Also, a huge thank you to Sydney and to the National Society of High School Scholars and SHSS for hosting us for this webinar. We really appreciate working with you all each year to help raise awareness about YYGS and about all the programs that you work with for high school students and for students overall. It's really wonderful. So we're very grateful for that. A little bit of housekeeping notes about the webinar today. I think all attendees are in listen-only mode throughout the whole webinar, throughout the hour that we have here, if you're attending live. And so we do encourage you to use that Q&A feature if you do have any questions. It's me who will be fielding them. So I'll be presenting likely for the first 30 minutes or so, but then I am going to check that, make sure that we have some time at the end to be able to check that Q&A tab and make sure if I haven't answered the question yet with the content we're presenting here, I want to be able to answer those questions, and I'm happy to help. Then I always like to note as well that if there's anything I don't get to here, I know it's a big program and it's only an hour. Please, please, please always feel free to visit our website. It's globalscholars.yale.edu and or to email us. It's global.scholars@yale.edu. It's me and three of my colleagues who are our communications team in the inbox there. And we really are happy to field any and all of your questions. We don't have any bots or autoresponders. So if you've got a question about YYGS, we want to really help you learn more about this program. So with that, who are we? What is YYGS? So Yale Young Global Scholars is an academic enrichment program, and our niche in the pre-college program space is global diversity. So what separates us apart from all other pre-college programs is how globally diverse we are, and our commitment to learning for the sake of learning and bringing global perspectives together about pressing global problems. So what do I mean by that? Couple different things. The first is that we make our program accessible to everyone around the world by having interdisciplinary 2-week sessions. So it's important that the sessions are 2 weeks long, not 4 weeks, not 6 weeks, et cetera, because we want to be accessible to students who are in the Southern Hemisphere. So for a lot of students in the Southern Hemisphere, they are in school in June and July when our program runs. And so they're able to access the program by overlapping one of our 2-week session options with a break, a winter break, a fall break, so that they can miss as minimal amount of school as possible to be able to attend YYGS on our campus in New Haven, Connecticut at Yale. So again, it's really important that we are a 2-week program. That's how we're able to have students. We've grown to have students that are representing 150 different countries all around the world. It's really, really hard to capture in words what it's like to be in an atmosphere that is that globally diverse. One example that I'll often give is if you were in a room and that room was filled with 50 people, and I told you each person in the room represents a different country that they're from, the language they speak, things like that. You'd be like, oh my goodness, like that is quite a lot of variety of people's backgrounds and everything, right? So 150 countries is like, you can't even fathom what it looks like to have 150 people in the room, all from different countries. It's a lot, you know? And beyond that, we're big and small at the same time. So we run 3 different session date options. So you can see those on the screen there. We have session 1, June 18th to June 30th, session 2, July 2nd to July 14th, and session 3 to July 16th to July 28th. So those are each of our 2-week session date options. And then within each date option, we offer the same 4 academic tracks. And those are our Innovations in Science and Technology, our IST program, our Literature, Philosophy, and Culture, our LPC program, our Solving Global Challenges, SGC program, and our Politics, Law, and Economics, PLE program. So if you hear someone say like PLE2 or PLE3, that just means they're in the PLE, Politics, Law, and Economics session that runs during session 2 or that runs during session 3. That is how that works. So when I say we're big and small at the same time, if you're doing the math there, that means we have 12 different sessions these 4 tracks in each of those 3 session dates. Total spots that are available in each session. So in PLE2 or in LPC1 is about 150 students. So that's the big. So if you were in a lecture for LPC2, for example, you'd be about 150 students attending in a lecture hall, like in our law school at Yale. But we're small in that most of our program components, breakout discussions, seminars, all of which we'll talk about. We have a 12-to-1 student to teacher ratio. So the whole focus of our program is bringing students together with one another, again, bringing global perspectives to bear on global problems. So we really thrive on dynamic, engaging interaction. This is not a program where we want you to sit back and listen and then regurgitate things. Not many programs are like that, but similarly, we're not a 4-credit course. You're not going to be like learning about statistics deeply throughout the entire 2 weeks, and that's the only focus, and then you get a credit for taking a statistics class, right? This is all about academic exploration. So what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that we really want you to explore, again, when you're not for credit, when you are 2 weeks and you're dynamic, we want you to explore learning for the sake of learning, especially from your peers and from exposure to a range of different kinds of coursework that happens at a college or university, the different kinds of majors that might be available, looking at career options. A really popular session we've had in the past has been our alumni impact panel. So trying to think about what have students from this program taken away from this program and from their own lives and experience to careers, in the nonprofit sector and the NGO sector, but also in the private sector. How do they make this work meaningful to them and finding some of their place and their role and what they want to do in their community? So for us, what we try to do to bring that dynamic curriculum together is have many different kinds of program components throughout the 2 weeks. So some of those are noted on your screen here. Our foundational ones are definitely those ones at the left. You see there, lectures, breakout discussions, seminars, and family time. But I'll also talk a little bit about capstone project, our students showcase, speaker series, special meals, symposium, and Scholé time. If you're wondering, what does a typical day look like for a YYGS student? That's not meant to be a mystery here. We are actually hoping to put together a webinar in our 2023 YYGS webinar series, all of which is available for free on our website. If you go to globalscholars.yale.edu and then you go to how to apply, you can see our webinar series there. So we're looking at actually adding in a webinar that's specifically about what does residential life look like now that we're coming back to campus for YYGS. But if you're also curious, what does a day in the life look like for YYGS, you can actually see a full sample schedule of the 2 weeks. So I'll provide the link for that in the chat after as well. But if you go to globalscholars.yale.edu and then you click residential, right there on that page, you would see tentative 2 week schedule that shows you here's the breakdown of what each day looks like at YYGS. And please do feel free to let us know if you have any questions about that. You can email us at any time. But what's actually happening, there you can see on the schedule, maybe 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. lecture, but you might want to know what's going on in each of these program components. So lecture is a good example here. And this is, as I noted earlier, this is actually in the law school at Yale. This is one of the famous lecture halls there. And this is a lecture that was happening in our literature, philosophy, and culture class, LPC. So you can see there's students there attending a lecture by a professor. What you don't see there is that we're really proud of the fact that all of our lecturers always preserve time at the end of their lecture for Q&A, for questions and answers from the audience, both as a big audience like this, but also students will often come up after the lecture, walk down the aisles if they have a direct question that they want to be able to ask to the lecturer. That's really encouraged, and we want you to have that one-on-one access to them. And some lecturers will even share their email for follow-up questions, and they're as interested in you and you having dynamic questions that would influence your future learning and future perspectives as you are in learning from them. Another question that we get commonly about lectures is, are they recorded? If you missed the lecture, is there ability to be able to see it afterwards? And the answer is no. And the reason is that it is typically lecturers sharing cutting edge, unpublished research. So intellectual property laws actually prevent us from recording the lecture because the research is not yet published and not yet shared. And so that's how dynamic and exciting these lectures are. And I have to say, as impressed as I am with the kinds of lecturers that we typically get, some of whom are noted on your screen now, I'm equally impressed with the students at YYGS who attend these lectures and come up with just incredible questions after the fact. So a common example I give, because it has always stuck with me, was a lecturer who was talking about robotics and her work with robots exploring new spaces. So she was trying to think about, how does a robot navigate a space that it's never been in before, using, past experiences or different kinds of programming. And at the lecture, as it ended, a student immediately shot up a hand and was called on to ask the question they had come up with, which was about how might this learning be applied for people who have any visual impairments or anything that prevents their sight when they're navigating a new space that they've never seen. And she was like, "Oh wow, we've actually been thinking about that." And I was sitting there thinking, how did you possibly think of that extension so immediately? Like it's such a good question, and that's really, really common with YYGS, that there are students that are sort of digesting that material, and then it just opens up your mind when you're, again, free from quizzes, free from tests, to just think about what are the implications of this and why do you actually care about this lecture or not. And that is a good tie to our breakout sessions or breakout discussions. So breakout discussions, if the lecture is with the full 150 students, let's say, in your session in PLE 1 or SGC 3, right? Breakout discussions happen directly following lectures, and they're a chance to sort of dig into like what just happened in this lecture. And what we don't want, again, is just a regurgitation of this person talked about these things, the end, like this is what I heard, I wrote down what I heard, that's what it is. The whole point of a breakout discussion is to think about bigger picture implications of that lecture. Some of that might just be in refining how you analyze a lecture itself. So did you like the lecture? Did you not like the lecture? Did you feel like they talked too much about this point, but they didn't bring up enough about these kind of issues that are more pressing? Like, did it seem like it was too focused on a particular geographic region? This lecture only talked about these implications as they would apply in Europe right now, currently, but they didn't think about how it would apply in the Middle East or in the US or historically what that's looked like, So you want to be able to really critique and sink your teeth into the material that was covered, but you also want to think forward looking, like what are the implications of this? What wasn't talked about? What could I take away from this that's valuable or might have helped me see something differently than how I saw it before? And, breakout discussions, I think, are really popular among our students because, it's a prompting that you could say, like, that lecture was really frustrating to me. I did not like the speaker. I did not like these things. And we are encouraging you to say, like, okay, that's really good for us to know. Like, what is it about it that was so difficult or challenging for you? Like, there's a value gained in your own learning about public speaking and your own learning about how to lecture and how to process the lecture, or to ask critical questions to the lecture afterwards to build that confidence that happens. And breakout discussions help all of us to refine those skills. Seminars are taught by our typically Yale undergraduate and graduate students. So those are the instructors that we hire to work with our program in the summer, and they are just incredible. And seminars are an opportunity for them to really teach in a dynamic and engaging way about something that's they're passionate about. So we really encourage our instructors to not only teach from their academic learning, maybe they're a major in political science or they're a major in biology and they look at stem cells specifically, right, in all of their academic research. But we encourage them to explore the intersection between their own maybe private or personal passions and their academic research. So, let's say that you're a philosophy major and you are also a musician, right? Something like that. You might have never really had the chance academically to explore any intersection between those two, right? How are ethics ever informed by the arts? Or, philosophy of literature, can you separate the author from the work, or does the work as it's written become its own thing, its own art piece afterwards? Or what is written by philosophers about art, right? Something like that, right? You might not have been able to explore that academically yet, but maybe that is a personal interest to you. So seminars, again, very, very popular part of the program. And each instructor is offering multiple seminars throughout the session. And so as you can see there, there's over 1,000 seminars that get offered throughout the program. And what does that look like for you, right? We want you to be able to tailor that to your own interests and to explore things you might never have explored before. So what I mean by that is that typically what will happen is we'll, in each session, in PLE1, in IST3, et cetera, if you're offered admission to the program, you accept that offer of admission, you complete the enrollment process, all the stuff with me, then the academics team is going to reach out to you typically in early May, and they're going to say, hey, you know, we've been working with and hiring, well, I'm working with and building cohorts of students. They've been building cohorts of instructors. And then those instructors put together a list of available seminars. And that whole list of available seminars is what's called our blue book. So we have a blue book of all the available seminars in a given session. And then students are able to look through all of those available seminars and rank their top choices, maybe their top 5 choices, top 6 choices, right? We have a really good track record of getting students into multiple, if not all, of their top choices. And we also really encourage students to be open to being assigned to a seminar that they may not have considered. So we're going to do as much as we can to get your top ranked choice. We want to get you into that seminar to be able to explore it. But it's going to be a mix throughout, you know, and that's something students have responded really positively to. You know, if you're in our IST program, for example, and you know, like your passion is physics, that's what you want to study, it's what you want to major in, et cetera. We can say, hey, take a bunch of seminars that are focused on physics related topics, but here's one that you might not have considered that's an oceanography that we think would be interesting to you. You know, and students aren't necessarily going to come back from that saying, wow, you know, I'm no longer just physics, oceanography, that's my passion. But they might say, hey, like though that explored concepts and topics I hadn't thought about before, then I'm actually really interested in learning more about, even if that's just personally for me. I didn't know about the relationship between the moon and ocean currents or waves, things like that, right? Or gravity and how that works that way. So, you know, I am really, really proud of the range of seminars that we offer and the experience that students have pushing each other and pushing themselves through participating in those. Most of our seminars, it's a one-time thing, you know, it's a one-time workshop that's occurring that day, and then you have a different seminar the next day throughout the program. And you can look at the whole sample tentative schedule for that. But some seminars, especially like in our literature, philosophy, and culture program, our LPC program, some seminars will be over multiple days. So maybe it's a seminar that lasts over 2 days, and that might be because they're wrestling with a particularly complex text or something like that. And it wouldn't be enough time to cover it in one day. And all of that, again, you can see in the blue book. So we do have sample seminars, not only on the screen here, but also if you go to our website and you go to the academics tab, you can see sample seminars, sample lectures within each of the academic tracks. And then again, in our 2023 webinar series coming up here in November, we do have dedicated webinars to each track. So a dedicated webinar about IST, about LPC, PLE, and SGC. So I'd encourage you to check that out. And again, to email us if you have any questions about seminars. And then our last core component, so we talked about lectures, breakout discussion, seminars. Our fourth core component is family time. So family time, I get that question a lot. Are we talking about your actual family or, you know, biological family or your chosen family? The answer is no, we're talking about your YYGS family. So at YYGS, we will divide students into different family groups. And the original purpose of this, when we started the program over a decade ago, had to do with the fact that students were coming from so many different places around the world. And we wanted a way for them to be able to explore the campus, to get to know folks. If they have any culture shock or homesickness, we wanted a solid place where they could feel supported from people, either experiencing the same thing or just trying to learn about this new place and program as well outside the classroom. But it's really evolved over time to be one of our easily most popular parts of YYGS because it's focused on all those things I said, exploring the campus, fun social activities, just getting to know each other. But also the students themselves have really made it about more than that. They want to talk about identity development, finding your voice, sort of reflecting on like, who were you as you came into this program, and who are you and what are you thinking about now as you move through different kinds of reflections and global perspectives. So it's a really, really beautiful part of the program. And, you know, I will say, like, personally, one of my favorite parts of it is just how much fun people have with it. Like, as a big board game and card game fan myself, and sports fan, I think I enjoy any and all of that we see. But I also am just really grateful for the reflections that students share with us. Not because we asked them to, just openly saying, hey, like, this is what happened. I've made lifelong friendships here. I am traveling to this other foreign country to see my friends from my YYGS family. It's really creating something that's really lasting and sustaining. And do not take my word for that. I would encourage you to talk to YYGS alumni themselves. We have an actively engaged group of over 10,000 YYGS alumni in over 170 countries all over the world right now. And if you go to our website, again, globalscholars.yale.edu, you can go to the alumni tab to check out some of our alumni ambassadors there as well. So our additional opportunities to learn, some of which I mentioned earlier, capstone project, speaker series, special meals, are opportunities across Yale. These are also really important parts of the YYGS program. So capstone is basically a 2-week research project where you're coming up with the topic that you want to explore. So it's a group research project. And you're sort of saying like, hey, and working with an instructor or undergrad and graduate students to say, you know, what is a project that's realistic in scope that we could cover over these 2 weeks and come away with something tangible. So often at the end of capstone, students have, you know, we developed a website for our peers to be able to share X kind of experiences, or we were focused on particular problems of, you know, the amount of plastic that's floating in the ocean right now, or, you know, access to water in rural areas, something like that, right? So that we want you to come away with something tangible that you think is helping or contributing. But the research itself is as important. So it matters, what did you learn when you did a deep dive into X issue, and what are you able to share about when you ultimately, at the end of capstone, you do present your findings to your capstone group that way. And it's a really wonderful experience, and capstone, I think, is always one of my favorite things to attend as a staff member, because I learn a lot from it as well too. Similarly, our speaker series, as far as something I learn a lot from, that's really a chance for students to present like a TEDx style talk about their own work, whether that's social impact work, about their own experiences that might be relatable to others, that they want the chance to give this kind of 5 to 10 minute talk that's really inspiring to their peers. And we want to provide a forum to do that. So students apply to present during speaker series and then are selected. And it's a really, really wonderful opportunity to get to know your peers a little bit more deeply in a different kind of forum. And it's great public speaking experience as well. And I have to say, the audience there is always like one of the most supportive I've ever seen anywhere. It's hard to do that, you know, to give that kind of talk, especially to some folks you may have just met in a big lecture hall like that. But it's a really, really wonderful experience. Special meals is definitely one of my very, very favorite things in YYGS. So special meals is the chance to connect over a meal, just like it sounds. So, you know, YYGS is part of our tuition. We do cover all housing, room and board. So you get 3 meals a day in our dining halls in the residential colleges on Yale's campus. What special meals are saying is like, hey, like if you want to take your meal and come to this particular focused topic, you know, a lunch or a dinner for a special meal, we'd encourage you to do that. And those are things you can sign up for ahead of time. So it can be a range of things that those focus on. Sometimes it's like a Spanish language speakers table, or it's connected to the lecturer early that day. So that lecturer actually stuck around for lunch, and they're going to be available for a small group of, you know, 12 to 20 students that wants to sit in and have lunch with them to talk a little bit more in a smaller forum or a smaller setting. And sometimes it's something of personal interest to you. I've led a special meal before about young people in romantic relationships, which is actually part of a research group that I was in when I was in grad school doing my master's. And so I presented about like, those are things I wish I had studied when I was younger, about what does a healthy romantic relationship actually look like? What are signs of that? Like, how do we learn about that from each other in school, from our peers, et cetera? And we've just had a special meal to just talk about that. What does that look like around the world to even be able to have that conversation? So it's a range of things. Or I've also led a special meal about bird watching, which is just a passion of mine that I have grown, especially over COVID, to really appreciate. So it runs the gamut, but it's a great chance to sort of break bread with your peers and really connect over things that might be interesting outside of a classroom setting. And opportunities across Yale, that when we are online, which we've been for the past 3 years while the pandemic sort of raged on, opportunities across Yale was like a formal event that was preserved in time there to be able to still connect with our labs, our libraries, different campus resources. When we're on campus, as we are again now this year residentially, opportunities across Yale is really an all-encompassing term for those kind of things that we do on this campus. So what I mean by that is, instead of saying, hey, during this hour block, we're going to have people that can sign up for different things with the labs, with the libraries, with our admissions office, things like that. And instead saying, hey, at many different points during the program, we're going to give you those kinds of opportunities. We want you to be able to take a field trip to explore, you know, the Beinecke Rare Book Library that we have here on campus, or the Museum of Fine Art, things like that. So there's really incredible opportunities on Yale's campus. Some of that is just exploring the campus on its own. We do have a campus map with boundaries that are set where students are able to roam within that area, and our staff is there as well, that you can really explore this campus as what it looks like as a university student. And we really, really encourage that independence as well. And so it's arranged that way, but the whole point is a pre-college program. Us, like many pre-college programs, we want you to get a feel for life as a college or university student, and to be able to connect with real resources happening on the campus beyond just what you would see if you were any person walking around. We want to give you access to, again, those labs, those libraries, those museums, and the people within them that can help you think about how to explore those spaces. So some admissions advice. This, I think, is a really good opportunity for me to talk about something I haven't shared yet, which is related to the fact that we are coming back to campus. I know I mentioned that a moment ago. So this is the first year since 2019 that YYGS has been able to run residentially. And we're very excited about that. You know, we really wanted to respond to students and families from around the world that said, hey, we think that this might now be a possibility, and we'd like to be able to come visit the college and engage with the campus if possible. For the past 3 years, we ran YYGS online, and I have to say I'm so proud of our entire community, our students, our staff, our instructors, the professors whom we worked with. Everyone just did an incredible job at making that experience so rich. And if you doubt me, ask our YYGS online alumni. They really kept this program being incredible. And it didn't have to be that way. I think when the pandemic happened, we very quickly pivoted to saying, okay, everyone, it was March of 2020. And we said, everyone who we've offered admission to, because at that point we had made all possible admission offers. We had filled this program. We said, we're going to refund everyone. So there's no obligation to still attend this program or do anything. We're going to give you a refund. We're going to create this YYGS online program. And the first thing we did was survey students and their families. We said, we're going online, like, what kind of things are you looking for or hoping for in this program? Here's what we're thinking, give us feedback. And we ended up having about 95% of the students who were offered admission and then were refunded, and then were offered admission again to do the online program, opted to matriculate into the online program, including to pay reduced tuition to do the program online and participate and successfully matriculate. And those students that first year and for these past 2 years have really just done in 2020, 2021, and 2022. They did an incredible job at really building this program and making it dynamic. So all of our sessions when we were online were live. There was nothing recorded. We still had a small 12-to-1 student to teacher ratio. They still attended lectures and were able to ask questions at the end of each lecture. And they built in things that we hadn't been able to do previously when we were on campus that we're now trying to think about how to replicate. So we were able to have Yale's president come and give a message because of their availability then, and to work with several different people across campus in new ways that we're now trying to bring back into the residential program. So I say all of that because while the online program was incredible and we learned so much from it, we now, as we go back to being on campus, are trying to think about this program that we've run residentially again for over a decade, to think about it in a renewed and new way. So we know what we've done and done well to host students on our campus and everything that they've enjoyed from that. And we also know that the world is different, and I think that we've tried to be always as open and transparent as possible with all students and families who are considering this program, to think about it, whether it's the right fit for them. So if you're coming to our campus and you know that we're a program that has representation from over 150 different countries all over the world, you have to think about basic preventative measures and also assuming a basic level of risk with relation to COVID that way, right? And so you can find all of this on our website. If you go to globalscholars.yale.edu and click our COVID updates page, you can see our updates there in real time as they are evolving. We obviously have to comply with the United States policy around who's able to enter the country and how, and then also just with Connecticut state law for running a program for minors and with Yale University policy. So we try to put all of that openly out there, but we really wanted to be able to design and run a program where you would still be able to engage with the campus. So what we don't want you to be feeling like you get here, you're put in a dorm room, and then we're like, here's a laptop, kick it there. Like that is not what we're interested in at all. We want you to have full access to the campus. So in order to do that, when I talk about basic preventative measures, in that case, what we're saying is we do need all students who are accepting an offer of admission and coming to participate in this program. They would need to have received at least one dose of a CDC-approved vaccine. Again, you can find the link to that on our website. We know that can present barriers for some students considering applying, which is difficult, and we're looking into what alternatives can be in the future. But for this year, we know that one dose of a vaccine is going to be critical for everyone to have, if not to be completely current as they can be with their vaccinations for COVID-19. So we want to be as preventative as possible that way. You can see our policies beyond that for testing, for what it looks like to be living in this with the pandemic sort of in an endemic stage, and what that would look like to be able to participate in a program that's 2 weeks long, right? Because we want you to be able to stay to participate as you come here, and we're going to try to all be as safe as possible in doing that and having a great time doing that. So I say all of that to tie into some of the admissions advice that you see here on your screen, which is if you're an international student that's applying for our program, we would strongly encourage you to apply early action if possible. I'll talk about those deadlines. Our early action deadline is November 2nd, and our regular decision deadline is January 10th. You can apply in either pool. I just did a webinar earlier today about early action and regular decision. You can view that recording on our website. But the reason we would encourage international students specifically to apply early action is we want you to have as much time as possible to secure your travel documentation. So, I mean, a passport. Typically for our international students, they are attending the program on a B2 visitor visa because we're a not-for-credit program, so you don't need a F1 visa or a J1 visa. You're looking at a B2 visitor visa, but that still does involve applying for the visa, working with your local embassy or consulate to be able to have an interview, things like that to secure that. So we do as much as we can to support students in all of that who are attending the program. So again, if you're offered admission and you accept that offer of admission, then we very immediately provide you with a visa support letter. We can't do it prior to that in the process because that letter would just say this person applied to this program. And consulates and embassies are not interested in that. They want to know who is secured to actually attend. You're interested in going to this country because you've been offered admission to attend this program and you've accepted that and committed to it. So we provide that letter immediately if you're offered admission and then accept that offer. And so that's why if you apply early action, you're applying by November 2nd, you'd hear your admissions decision back by December 20th. And then you'd be accepting or declining that offer of admission by January 4th. So that would mean that you'd have basically from mid-January, let's say, through early May to work on securing that travel documentation. If you apply a regular decision, those deadlines shift a bit. So you would be applying by January 10th, you'd be hearing back by March 10th, and then you'd have until March 15th to accept or decline that offer of admission. So you'd have from about March 15th until early May, a much shorter period of time to secure that travel documentation. I should note with that, very proud of YYGS, like we are not interested in any kind of bait and switch situation. Another thing that makes us unique as a pre-college program is we are not a revenue generator and we are not an admissions pipeline feeder. So we weren't founded by Yale to do either of those things, to generate a bunch of revenue for the school or to try to increase the admissions numbers for the school. There are lots of programs that do both of those things, by the way, that are still incredible pre-college programs. It's just not our mission, not our purpose. YYGS was founded by academics and we're run out of the Office of International Affairs at Yale. So our full purpose is to say, hey, can we bring students together from all around the world, again, to have global perspectives on global issues? And people at Yale believe that is the future and is important. We want to know that if you're thinking about an issue, again, like access to water, and maybe you're from sub-Saharan Africa and you're thinking about how critically important that is in your home community. We also want you to have a chance to talk to people in rural Australia or to talk to people in under-resourced parts of the United States who also have issues with access to water. And maybe through all of your thinking combined, we can address those problems with creative and innovative solutions that's brought to bear by all those perspectives coming together. So that's really our full purpose. And I say all of that connected to this because we always have a very, very open and transparent refund policy. So if you're saying, hey, what if I do all the things you're asking, apply for a visa, commit and pay tuition towards this program, and I'm not able to secure the visa, so I'm denied a visa, like what then? And the answer there is that our refund policy has always been if you have a last minute or an unknown like family medical emergency, somebody breaks a leg, contracts dengue fever, any range of things very real things that we've had in the program. Or if you have a visa denial after good faith attempts to get a visa. So what I mean by that is starting as early as you possibly can in either early action or regular decision. So if you wait to apply for a B2 visitor visa until May 4th, and we're saying you have to have it secured by May 5th, that's not going to work out for you or for us. But if you've applied for the visa and you were denied after you tried, to the earlier, you weren't able to get an appointment in time, and you can provide us with documentation of that attempt, which happens every year, then we do provide full refunds every year for any and all tuition paid at that point. So again, we're not trying to get you to sign up for this program and being like, just kidding, you can't participate. Like, we want to help empower and enable you to access this program. And that connects to one of these notes that is sort of later on the screen about admissions advice about need-based financial aid. So when it says there, these are all advice, I should say, that comes straight from YYGS alumni themselves that they've asked me to share. And one of those is that if you think you might need need-based financial aid for any reason, so if you think that cost would in any way be a barrier to you, even in a small way, the application fee itself, would be a barrier, anything like that, please, please, please request need-based financial aid. So we make that available within our overall YYGS application for everyone, domestic students, international students. There are no income requirements, anything like that. If you think cost would be a barrier, we want you to apply for need-based financial aid, and we read our applications need blind. So the answers that you give in that portion of the application about whether or not you request financial aid, our application readers can't see that at all. So it doesn't factor in at all to whether they are recommending that you receive an admit, waitlist, or denied decision. The way that it works is if you are recommended to receive an admit decision, so if you're recommended to be admitted, Then we have special financial aid readers that come in, look at your financial aid responses, and they're putting together a package for you. So it's not impacting whether you're offered admission or whether you're waitlisted. It's just impacting your answers there, impacting what kind of financial aid package we can put together for you. We try to make that form as accessible as possible. It requires just a minimum of one piece of documentation, and we try to tailor that all around the world. A bank statement doesn't look the same all over the world. Neither does the concept of a tax return or anything like that. So first off, those do not need to be translated into English. We can accept them in all foreign languages. And again, it's just as much documentation as you can give us, the stronger the package we can put together. But if you can also note to us very clearly why you're not able to provide any documentation for any reason, and we've had that happen before. We've had a student who lost all of their family's paperwork in a house fire, things like, things that are really, really challenging. We respect those challenges and we want to help you. We really are all about access and trying to break down these kind of systemic barriers to programs like ours and to educational institutions like ours. And I'm a deep believer in that. I'm from a low-income area of rural Ohio originally. My whole career is in college access, and I really want to see students and families empowered to consider a program like ours. I can't guarantee you a spot, right? It's a competitive admissions process. We only have a limited number of beds in a dorm or spots available, but I'm going to try to make the experience of applying for this program as beneficial to you as possible for any other competitive admissions process, for applying to other programs, for applying to colleges or universities or to jobs. I want there to be tangible takeaways from here. And the best possible tangible takeaway is if we're able to offer you admission and you can participate in this program. I want you to get something out of that. So with that, the other notes here are start early. We know the average amount of time it takes to complete our application. That's from the moment you create the application through everything, including your supporting materials coming in. So your transcript being submitted or your recommendation form being completed is about 2 weeks. And so listen, if you're listening to this recording and it's like 3 days before the deadline, it's okay. It's possible. We don't give any advantage to students that apply earlier versus later. If you apply by our final deadline of January 10th at any point, including up to 11:45 p.m. on January 10th, we're going to consider your application fairly and equally. There's no timestamp. Our reader isn't looking at that. We want everyone to have a chance to access this program no matter when you heard about it. The advantage to trying to start early and get your application in ahead of the deadline, if possible, is for you. It's you and your stress level and your ability to feel confident in the application that you put together, and listen, it's not anything about high school students. It's not anything about people from any particular place. It's all of us. It's human nature that there are a lot of ways for a lot of us that you can end up procrastinating something, and that's completely understandable. It's not ever, because you've done something wrong. Life is happening right now, right? You're in school, you're balancing maybe a range of commitments outside of school, whether that's with your family or extracurriculars, things like that. So we appreciate you considering this program at all. And we just want to give you some experience of what it looks like to get an application like this submitted, again, similar to a college or university application. And that does involve working with a school official who submits a transcript. And by transcript, I mean anything that's documenting what kinds of coursework you've participated in or grades you've received from your freshman year, a US grade 9 or international equivalent through till now. So as current as you can give it is great. You can always add additional transcripts later as well. And then the final point there, aside from apply early action if you're an international student, if you can, or if not, try to work on your regular decision stuff as soon as possible and start securing any travel documentation you need as early as possible. Start early, contact your school official or your recommender early. If you think you might need need-based financial aid, apply for it and try to, set yourself a personal deadline that's ahead of our deadline, especially if you're trying to navigate around time zone concerns. The last point there is just ask us questions, right? There's things I'm not going to cover here. I am going to get to the questions that are coming in the Q&A here before we wrap up, but I really mean that. Like, there are no bad questions. We want to hear from you, and we are really happy to help if you need to know anything, even if it seems small. It's not easy for how language translates all around the world, right? So if you're staring at our application and you're just on the personal information page that's asking about your own name, and you see that it prompts you to say, do you have a suffix to add to your name? And you're like, what is a suffix? Like, ask us that question. We're happy to answer it. We don't expect people to understand all terms and concepts from all over the world exactly the same, and we want to help you. So please, please, please do reach out. Our eligibility requirements to participate are noted here and on our website. I won't go through all of them, but the key things to note there is we do need you to be 16 years old by the first day of session 3, which is July 16th. So there are no exceptions to that rule. It has to do with legal compliance requirements for running a session for minors and things like that in the state of Connecticut. So that is the reality for our program. We work with students that are typically between 16 to 17 years old. If you are younger, we encourage you to learn more about YYGS, like no worries at all. We would just need you to apply for the following year. And you don't have to worry. There are some students in international locations where they're like, oh, but if I wait till I'm 17, I will already have graduated from high school. And like in Peru, we've often had that example where there are students who are graduating from school earlier prior to them being 18 years old. And that's okay. We work with all countries from all over the world. So just ask us if you have any questions like that. We can let you know what's in place, but it is always the case with no exceptions. You need to be at least 16 by the first day of session 3 to be able to apply for this current year's program. We also need you to be able to participate in a rigorous academic curriculum conducted in English. So part of that is just that it is a 2-week program, and it's not a program that's focused on English language learning specifically. So I'm always telling students, hey, if you think you need your English to be stronger to be able to participate, and by participate, I mean, especially in a program that has a lot of open speaking and discussion. So you want to be conversationally strong enough in English to be able to talk with peers that way. Then we would encourage you to pursue an English language learning program first and then come do YYGS. It's just not something we're able to offer here. And we don't want to do you or anyone a disservice by having them come to our program and then think, oh, maybe college or university is not right for me. My English isn't strong enough. That's a skill you can develop. We're just not the right program to be able to do it. But when you feel your English is strong enough to participate in this program, then we definitely want to have you come join and explore all the resources we have on campus through YYGS. And then the other points there about grade level graduation date, those are basically a reiteration of what we're saying here overall, that what we're looking at for our age level to participate is typically we want students who have had at least 1 full year of high school or a high school equivalent here in the US. So again, if you've had the equivalent of US grade 9 internationally anywhere, 1 year of high school, that's fantastic. And then we want you to have some school left to complete after you come back from the program. So again, in the Southern Hemisphere, that might only be a semester. You might be graduating in December, of that year. But the point is that you haven't already graduated high school and then are coming to the program. Again, there are exceptions to that for those folks that graduate high school at a younger age. We understand that. Similarly, if you skipped a year like forward in school, again, you still have to be at least 16 years old to apply, but you don't have to worry if you're going to be like a high school senior or something like that because you've skipped ahead that way. So those are all exceptions we're very familiar with and happy to answer any questions about that if you email us. And then the last one there is that you do need to be a first-time participant in YYGS. And that is simply because we do have so many students applying each year. So we receive over 7,000 applications for YYGS every year, which is about the size of like a small liberal arts school application pool. And so, we want to be able to extend that opportunity as broadly as we can. It doesn't make us any less competitive. We are a very competitive admissions program, but we want everyone to have a fair shot and equal access to that opportunity, and particularly to our need-based financial aid as well. So that's why we don't have students participate multiple years in a row. Instead, we prioritize having a really thorough and exciting and compelling alumni program for alumni of YYGS. So if you've participated previously, we still want to work with you. We want to interact with you. You just can't do YYGS again. So some application details about that. You can actually see that the easiest way possible is to go to our website, globalscholars.yale.edu, and click apply now. So I'm not saying that because I need you to create an application no matter what. No, if you're just considering whether or not to apply for us, the best way is to create the online application and then to navigate through it. So you can actually navigate through and see every single page of the application, all the questions, just by click through it without submitting an application at all. So you're welcome to do that. If you're like, no, don't trick me, I don't want to like put in any of my details or enter any information, that's fine too. We actually have a full PDF preview of the application on our website, again, globalscholars.yale.edu. You can go to how to apply. That's where you can click apply now, or you can also click preview application and you can see the full PDF that has all of our essay questions, our fast take responses, short answer questions, that's all there. But basically we want to know who you are, tell us a little bit about you. Your activities list, that's not a resume or like a full list. We just want to know up to 3 activities that are meaningful to you. So a minimum of 1, and that doesn't have to be an extracurricular. That could be, I have to babysit for a younger sibling, 3 days a week after school. And this is all I learned from that, or this is what I do, or this is why that's important to my family. That could be your one activity, and that's completely fine. We just want to know how you're spending your time outside of school and what's important or meaningful to you. And so you can list a total of 3 activities there, but a minimum of 1. And then again, I mentioned the essay, the short answer responses. That's just for us to get to know a little bit more about you. Overall, people always ask, what are we looking for in a YYGS applicant? And the short answer of that is, I direct our readers to look for 2 things. What would the student contribute to the YYGS community, and what would they take away from the YYGS community to bring back to their home community? What would they bring to it, and what would they get out of it? So as cliche as it can sound, what makes a good essay, that way, et cetera, it really is about finding your voice. So write about something that's genuinely interesting to you, in response to our prompt, of course, but it's meant to be usefully broad, so that you can share something that matters to you, or is compelling to you, and why you think, that's relevant here to this program, I think is important. Happy to talk more about that as well if you have any questions, but that's sort of the short version. Our fast take responses are meant to be more creative. So, equivalent of saying something of, if you could have dinner with anyone living or dead, who would you choose? Is it a celebrity? Is it a grandparent? Is it, anything like that? That would be an example of a creative fast take type question. So you can see what our actual fast take questions are for this year. If you go to our website, again, globalscholars.yale.edu, and either create an application or click through our preview application. I think the essay and the fast take questions, I believe, are on page 13, somewhere around there, of that PDF. Then we do want to see, again, a transcript. So we do offer what's called an official transcript upload or an unofficial transcript upload. The difference there is just an official transcript is something submitted by an adult at your school, a teacher, a guidance counselor, et cetera. And unofficial is any transcript submitted by you, including if it's the official one you got from your school. If you submit it, it's just called an unofficial transcript that way. So you can submit both. They can look exactly the same. It just needs to be one or the other that's with your application. And then we do ask for a recommender. You're going to provide their contact information, their name, their title, and most importantly, their email address. And then our application software automatically shoots an email to that recommender with our recommendation form, which is about 6 multiple choice questions for the recommender. It's meant to help us compare among applicants. And there is a short answer response where they can write a little bit about you as well. We do have an application fee that is non-refundable no matter what. So even if you withdraw from the application process, or you find out ultimately you wouldn't be able to attend, or you're denied and not offered admission, anything like that, the application fee is used to process the application. So again, we are processing 7,000 applications each year. It helps pay for our software licensing to be able to host our application software, and for our staff time and processing and deeply reading and moving through every application. So even if you withdraw, we still have to process that application and make sure it moves properly through our system. So that's what the application fee is for. And it also, at a lot of competitive admissions processes, it demonstrates your interest in the program. So that is sort of how that works. Again, we do not want costs to be a barrier to attending this program. So if this would present any issue for you or your family at all, for every single student that requests need-based financial aid, a fee waiver option automatically appears in our YYGS application. So you wouldn't be prompted to pay at all. You would simply be requesting a fee waiver. which you do again by entering contact information for what's called an authorized official. So that's somebody who might be familiar with you or your family, a teacher, a guidance counselor, social worker, anything like that, and could just verify, yes, this person would qualify for a fee waiver. You request it from them, they approve it, and then your fee is automatically waived. And while you're waiting for that request to be received, you're not going to be prompted to pay at all. So the key focus I would say here is, yes, you do have some outside folks who might be helping with your application, a school official to upload a transcript, a recommender to upload a recommendation form, and if you're applying for need-based financial aid, an authorized official who might help with a fee waiver. However, you can submit your portion of the application without any of that occurring. So as long as you've entered the contact information for the school official, for the recommender, and or for your authorized official, you simply have to click submit application of your portion of the application by either of those deadlines. So by early action by November 2nd, or regular decision by January 10th. And if you submit your portion of the application by then that transcript, that recommendation form can be added later and your application will be reviewed after that comes in. A couple notes there, as it says about financial aid and scholarships. So not meaning to bury the lead there at all. It's financial aid is its own whole section sort of within YYGS that I'm really proud of. Again, like my whole career has been dedicated to educational access and breaking down financial barriers so that everyone has a fair shot at accessing these kinds of programs. And so we do an actual entire webinar that's about need-based financial aid and how that works in our program. And the gist of this here is that we have a tuition price for anyone that is lower actually than our cost per student to run the program. But there's a full tuition price that's there. And then we offer need-based financial aid in $500 increments. So the smallest amount of waiver we would have is $500. All the way up to the full tuition amount. So we are determining that based on what's called your expected family contribution, or your EFC. So if you apply for need-based financial aid, we're going to ask for some documentation that would help us determine your expected family contribution, which means the amount you could reasonably be expected to contribute towards tuition. So we've got your EFC. Let's say you could reasonably be expected to pay $500 towards tuition based on your family's finances. So if our sticker price is $6,500, your EFC is $500, and there's a gap of $6,000, and that's what we're going to try to give you as a waiver in need-based financial aid. So that's how it works with our program. Do not let the tuition price be a barrier towards you applying. I always tell students, like, go through the process of applying for the program, and then you can always accept or decline the offer that you receive. So nothing binds you to the program. You're not committed that you have to be doing this. You can receive a fee waiver, so you don't pay a dime towards applying. And then if you're offered admission, that financial aid package is given as part of that offer. So you would, if you accept or decline, it would be looking at that with that in mind. And you can always submit a financial aid review request form if you need any adjustments to that package. We're not able to cover travel, and that's because legally, logistically, we cannot cover travel with this program. So we're not able to legally like cut a check, hand it to you and say, here, book a plane ticket. So what we focus on is discounting tuition as much as possible, and then helping you to fundraise or work with your family or people in your local community to say, hey, if the difference between me going to this program or not is simply a plane ticket or the cost of applying for a visa, we want to help you fundraise and be able to do that. So in these last few minutes, I'm going to take a peek here at the questions that are coming in, and I can actually type some of those answers here. So someone was asking about the sample schedule, which again, if you go to globalscholars.yale.edu and then click residential, you can actually see the sample schedule there. Similarly, they were asking about English fluency test. That's a great question. So it is an optional, it's the only optional test score upload that we have in our application. Is you could submit an English fluency test such as Duolingo or TOEFL, anything like that, Cambridge, IELTS, anything like that. So those are completely optional. So it is not something that we recommend or don't recommend. It's just up to you. If you think it would help strengthen your application, or that's a test you took, you're proud of, and you want to be able to share it, you're absolutely welcome to share it, but it's in no way required. And I always say, like, we're looking for you if English isn't your first language, or you go attend a school where the primary language is not English, there's several ways in the application that you can demonstrate that without having to pay for and or take one of those tests. So, you'll be able to do that in your essays and your short answers. We actually ask about your language fluency, including if you have fluency in foreign languages, on the additional information page within the application. We don't have, there's another question about if we have like a GPA requirement or a minimum GPA, anything like that. We do not. So any and everyone, we encourage you to apply from all over the world. That answers another question about, is this program only for students in the Northern or Southern Hemisphere? It's not. It's open to any and all countries everywhere. And that's also why we don't have a GPA requirement. It's not a consistent system among all schools around the world. So we want to consider you. We read applications by geography, by the school you attend. So we're trying to look at you in the pool of students from the school you attend, including the community that you're in, and sort of broadly. So we look at that by region, sub-region, country, and then specific community. So we might say, okay, we're looking at, if you attend school in Bangladesh, we're not looking at you in the pool of all students from Asia. We're looking at Southeast Asia in Bangladesh and then in the community you live. So I think that is answering the bulk of questions we have. I know that we're at time. If you do have any other questions, I did want to answer the one I see right here about if you are attending school in the United States, should you apply? Definitely yes. So whether you're attending school in the US or attending school abroad, we have had representation not only from 150 countries around the world, but from all 50 plus US states and territories. Even earlier today, we had a panelist on our webinar who was from Guam. So we're happy to have any and everyone coming to us. But I do want to wrap up there as we're at time and just say again, if you have any questions, please, if we didn't get to them here, email us at global.scholars@yale.edu. And it's likely me who will be fielding those, or my colleagues. And we just really appreciate your time today with the webinar. And thank you again to NSHSS for hosting us. We're so grateful, and we can't wait to hopefully read all your applications soon. Thank you, everyone.